Blessings, blessings, blessings. You are listening to the Spoken Word Yoga Podcast. I am Christine Lewis, and my intention is to inspire over 1 billion people to improve individually, so collectively we show up in the world as the best version of ourselves. I want you to believe that your message matters because the world needs you. Consider this podcast as a nudge to encourage you, as the whisper in your ear that inspires you. This is the first breath of the rest of our lives. Let's make the most of it. Take a deep inhale and let's ride the waves of good vibes together. Blessings and blessings and blessings. Welcome, Spoken Word Yoga Podcast. It is always a blessing to be able to share a little bit of the magic of what we can create in the kingdom of our minds, and we start to visualize what the possibilities are. So spoken word yoga is rooted in our ability, in the most confrontational of circumstances, to create an energy, a feeling, a sensation, an emotion that is serving us more than the balancing on one foot, more than the stress, more than the struggle, more than whatever it is that is preventing us from truly accessing what we want in our lives. We start to shift our perception of circumstances so we don't get stuck in the circumstance itself. So spoken word yoga came about because I noticed that students during the yoga practice are very critical of themselves. They're focusing on what they can't do. They're judging themselves when they fall out of a balance, cursing, muttering under their breath when they feel like they're not living up to whatever expectation they put on themselves when they walked onto the mat. And you can see the conversation people are having with themselves in their minds, and it's written all over their faces. You see people that are angry with themselves, frustrated. You see it on the street. You see it in a yoga practice. The irony of the yoga practice is that you're there by yourself. It's just you on the mat. There's no one else. So the funny thing is people get into a very critical space of themselves, with themselves, by themselves, about themselves. And think about that for a moment. You're standing on a four-cornered mat, sweating, dripping, balancing on one foot, maybe balancing on your head, whatever it is you do in yoga. The head thing is a little overrated. The funny part is that whatever posture, whatever physical pose you're trying to work on, there's something in you that starts to criticize your ability and the work you're doing in that pose. Now, just the fact that you're making the attempt should be a successful cause for celebration. The attempt is the beginning of success, yes? So we know that at least the fact that we stood up, got out the door, got to the studio, or walked onto the mat, whatever it is that it took you to get onto the mat, in and of itself should be cause for celebration. You ought to be congratulating yourself in the kingdom of your mind, giving yourself an anthem of praise, because, you could be sitting at home, sitting on the sofa, watching a television, eating a pepperoni pizza, drinking a beer, what a lot of people are doing. You could be doing that. But instead you chose to get up, get out, and do something. And even though you made that big effort to get up, get out, and do something, once you got there, you're criticizing and judging. So you start to, be an objective observer of yourself and think about, well, why is it that you're creating this space of anger and confrontation? Why are you creating a space where you're not entirely happy with yourself? Like, if you can create something that makes your life a little easier, that at least makes the connection that you're making with yourself and others a little easier, why not do that? So I'm talking today about the fact that we have the ability to regulate our thoughts, to regulate our emotional space, to create something, at least in our mind, that's working for us. So if you can do that on a four-cornered mat with sweat dripping down your body, balancing on one foot, in the extremes of a hot room, in the case of hot spoken word yoga, the ability for you to shift your view of your circumstances is being developed while you're standing on the mat. If you're able to shift your perception of the heat, the sweat, the balance, whatever's happening to you in that small space of the four-cornered mat, if you're able to shift your perception of that, chances are when you leave the room, when you get off the mat, you don't fall victim to whatever the present moment circumstance is. This is the challenge we have, and I'll say that the ultimately the lesson that we can use our thoughts to create anything we want. And too often we allow this reactionary space to put us into an emotional space we don't want to be in. So why not start being proactive with putting your thoughts to work for you? Putting our thoughts to work for us in such a way that we consistently start to manipulate our emotional space in a positive way, so that we're not being manipulated by external stuff. We're using what we create internally, what we create in our minds, to dictate the way we show up in life, to already lay the groundwork for how we're going to perceive the things happening to us. Are they obstacles or opportunities? Are people giving you access to something by maybe challenging you or questioning you or putting something in your space that causes you to take a look at how you're responding to things? This is the work, is that we know we don't control the stuff out there. We control everything we create in here. So if you start to create a thought pattern, a process that's working for you, that's inspiring you, motivating you, building your confidence, you don't have to be all that confident. But if you wake up in the morning and you tell yourself that you're confident, if you give yourself this air of confidence, tell yourself how spectacular you are, how beautiful you are, how control of your life and the situation, how prepared you are, how confident you are. This repetitive mantra of confidence starts to make you feel confident. If you're ever not feeling so great, fake a smile. It's a really good trick to start to change the way you feel about yourself and the world. And my suggestion is our ability to continually reinforce the energy and the feelings that we want, so we're not falling victim to whatever's happening in the moment, whatever's happening in the external space. So you don't walk into a room and potentially your energy is changed by whatever's happening in that room. Instead, you walk in the room and change the energy of the room because you showed up. You're not in a relationship feeding off of somebody else's emotions. You're actively creating, contributing to, and influencing the quality of energy that's in the relationship and in the space. So I'm just suggesting that this is part of our work. Our work in self-improvement, our work in self-awareness, our work in trying to create something that's bigger than whatever's presented to us in the physical space, because frankly, that's not always going to serve our highest and greatest good. If you spend a lot of time watching television or the news, you know that what's presented is not in your highest and greatest good. That most often what we see on television, what's being presented to us, it's not serving us in a way that's giving us something that's elevating us, that's helping. And what else are we doing with our time if we're not going to create something that's really going to serve us and help us along the way? So how can you manipulate your emotions in a way that makes you feel better about things? Rather than falling victim to a circumstance that might seem stressful, that might seem frustrating, we can create something that at the very least, is giving us access to more of the energy that we want, to more of the connection we want. So think about how you want to feel. Who do you want to be? What energy do you want to leave behind when you leave a room? What energy do you want to bring into the room? What energy do you want to share with the people around you? What energy do you want to create in your relationships? If you visualize the ideal relationship, what is it? What does it look like? How does it feel? What do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel when you go to sleep at night? Not just the relationship with your lovers, your friends, your relatives, your children, your everybody who's in your space. There's strangers on the street. Because trust, if you can create a good relationship with strangers on the street, that's a good test of your ability to maintain a good relationship. And being nice, being kind, being compassionate, being empathetic, being authentic with the people that you meet along this life's journey, trust that the more of yourself you share and put out there, the more likely you are to make really deep connections with people. And I think especially now in the space of social media where we are almost blocked physically from connecting because connection just visually and audibly is so easy. You can flip on a video, you can listen to somebody's podcast, you can be connected with somebody through a media. And so maybe the need, desire, drive to connect with somebody in the physical space is not as urgent as it used to be. I was speaking with a friend last week and, she came up in my meditation and I haven't spoken to her in at least 2 or 3 months. And every time I've set the intention that every time I think of somebody, I make the effort to reach out to them because, especially if you haven't thought of somebody in, a month or so, and all of a sudden they are heavy in your space, it probably means that, there's a reason you should reach out to them. So I've been calling, texting, checking in every time I think about people. And, she'd been going through a lot with her family, her father's health, her husband's health, her things with it. And, the crazy thing is that without taking the time to call and reach out, there's so many things that I wouldn't know are going on in the space, but simply by extending a little care and kindness, she was so grateful and appreciative just for that energy. So you think about how your energy affects the people you touch, that we are all making an impact, a powerful impact on the people around us. And to be able to be in a space where you're allowing your energy to set the tone for the energy in your relationships. So you start to be so aware and responsible for the energy that you're creating that when you show up in a relationship, when you show up in a connection and interaction with anyone, they feel the energy that you're projecting. And that starts to raise the average up. It starts to dictate how the energy, the course and direction of energy of that conversation and interaction is going to go. So if you can show up with a smile, show up with a compliment, show up with positive energy that makes somebody feel better because you're in their space, that's one of the most powerful things we have the ability to do. That's what I hope to do, even just through this podcast, that you're driving in your car or doing daily activity, routine, whatever it is that you're normally doing, but that by listening to what I have to offer, by listening to something that I have to say, that I'm somehow bringing value to your life. And shouldn't we all want to raise the bar up enough that we bring value to each other's lives? That we start stepping up to take care of each other, to look out for each other's energy space. That, if you see somebody who's frustrated, who's struggling, who's having a rough day, say something to them that you would want someone to say to you. And then it's so easy for us to identify other people who need a little pick-me-up, who need a little inspiration, who need a little help. But then we don't give ourselves that same rescue. We don't give ourselves that same lifeline. We are our own support system. We should show up that way for ourselves as a support system so that we get to this space where even when the energy dips, even when we get frustrated, angry, upset, irritated, whatever it is, when the energy dips, we have a go-to phrase. We have something that we come back to, that we remind ourselves of our power, our ability, that we're prepared, we're purposeful in our energy, we're powerful enough to be able to shift whatever's going on in the external to create what we want in the internal. And we're consistent with it so that our thoughts are regulating our emotions. And then we start to put that to work for us. This is the power of what we're able to create in the kingdom of our mind. The fact that all we got to do is create one idea, one belief system, one thing that inevitably changes everything. And then we're not victim to whatever's happening outside. We start creating more of what we want inside, and it starts to shift the course and direction of everything. So people want to know, well, how do you get more control of your life? How can you shift yourself into a happy space when there are things going on around you that are sad? Well, the work is to try to find the lesson, is to continually improve ourselves in the midst of whatever's going on, because ultimately that is our work in life, is to be able to feel like at the end we're better off than we were in the beginning, and that the things that are happening with us, nothing's happening to us. We want to be co-creators, very involved in what's happening in our lives. So the things that are happening with us, we are creating the energy so that, you're driving down the street, you get into an accident. It's not something that you immediately perceive as the worst possible thing that can happen. So I had a very good friend. She was riding in a golf cart, of all things. At least it's a funny story. It's not a very dramatic story. Riding in a golf cart on the golf course in a golf cart, and happened to take a little wrong turn and roll the golf cart. Golf cart rolls over, breaks her arm, severs nerves. I mean, a horrible thing. If you ever saw that old movie Splash with the mermaid and the Tom Hanks, and I don't remember, I mean, that's, 80s. I'm dating myself. That's fine. The guy had to walk around with his arm in that horrible sling that like was attached to his hip, and his elbow was like pointing all the way out. She had to wear one of those, and she had to wear it for like 6 months. She could not physically move her arm. It was a horrible recovery process that never really truly recovered. So then she wound up moving up to New York, having to get physical therapy, be up there so much, getting surgeries, 4 or 5 different surgeries. I mean, a really horrible recovery process for a broken elbow from falling off of a golf cart. In the process of all that, shifting in the course and direction of her life, certainly all the stuff going on could have been devastating emotionally, spiritually. Not that, at least she still had her arm, and she's one of, these people that really does walk with gratitude. So it's not as if she was in the point of devastation, but certainly this could be a discouraging bump in the road for a lot of people. And the process of moving up to New York and going back and forth in and out of surgery, after one of the last surgeries where, she's all slinged up and casted up, and one of her friends took her out, and she winds up meeting a guy. They fall in love, get married. They have this, whirlwind romance that never would have happened had she not fallen off the golf cart and broken her elbow and gone through several surgeries. There are all these things that happen in our lives that are putting us into a space that is either connecting us with the people we need to be connected to create whatever it is we're working on creating, to help in our purpose-driven life, or is the timing necessary that's giving us a lesson that we need to learn. We're either meeting somebody we need to meet, giving us a lesson we need to learn, putting us in a place we need to be for other things to happen. There's this ripple effect that happens. Think about it. Even if you're trying to get out the door of your house, try to, get to work or get to wherever you're going, and you stub your toe. In the time of stubbing your toe, you're sitting there for a good extra 5-10 minutes, just giving yourself a little time to heal. That delays you getting in the car. That delay then prevented you from getting into an accident. There's just so many things that are going on with divine timing and synchronicity that I feel like at some point you just got to go along for the ride, have the most positive perspective possible, and then use that to ride you through this life. Because frankly, if we get ourselves wrapped up in every bump in the road, in every accident, every time we stub our toe, whatever goes on, if we get stuck in that, then we miss out on the magic that happens in between. And it would be such a shame to spend the time and the magic, the time and the blessing with a bad attitude because you stubbed your toe before you left the house. It's being aware that we don't need to drag our past into our present, that we don't have to spend time trying to figure out the future. Hasn't happened yet, so be free right now. But know that what you're actively creating in this breath will dictate what you're presented with in the future. So consistent happiness, delusional happiness, is more productive than realistic misery could ever be. In the fact that we give ourselves this access to the power of our thoughts to create something bigger than what we've been presented with. This is how we elevate our lives. This is how we start to live in that space where happiness doesn't seem like a temporary situation, a temporary emotion. We start to figure out how to manufacture happiness on a regular basis, how to manufacture happiness even in the face of whatever else might be going on in the world. We start manufacturing, creating, generating the energy we want more of. And then how powerful that becomes in everything. So it doesn't matter what comes into your space. Even if somebody comes at you with aggression, somebody who's nasty, somebody who's unhappy comes at you in your space, do you realize that unhappy people don't really enjoy hanging out with happy people? If you are exceptionally happy, chances are that somebody who's not happy is going to spend very little time with you, because at some point they get irritated at how happy you actually are. And what better superpower to have than a happiness repellent, okay? I'm just suggesting that in the effort to surround yourself with more of the people you actually want to be with, more of the people that are going to elevate you and support you in your energy, start to use, happiness as a deterrent to people who aren't happy. Yeah, it's a strategy. I'm just going to suggest it's a helpful strategy to give yourself a little, access to something that might clear the negative energy out of your space immediately. I mean, think about it. There are very few people who want to spend time with somebody who's so happy that in everything that goes on, they're able to shift their perspective to create something that's really positive. So it's the positivity challenge. What can you create in your mind today? What can you create in your life? What can you offer to the people in the world that makes an impact that is improving the energy, that's raising the average up? Because I think each of us have the power to uniquely and powerfully impact the people we touch. It's just a matter of doing it. And it's a matter of being consistent in doing it. And even if you're not feeling so hot and maybe, you need a little extra energy, if you spend a whole lot of time giving energy to others, it starts to come back to you. And that whole thing about creating a collective of energy where you are so exceptionally happy that you start attracting happier people in your space. So using our thoughts to regulate our emotions, getting in a space where we manifest confidence, happiness. If you're sitting in traffic and you're feeling rushed, give yourself a space where you feel at ease. Give yourself a special mantra for standing in line, sitting in traffic, waiting. Because often waiting, we're focused on the waiting. But why not use that as an opportunity to start creating something so that when we are put on pause in our physical space, that we actually use that as an opportunity to access something more. So just a suggestion of how to shift the space around you. Start by shifting the space within you. It's so accessible to create a different thought right now. So even if a negative thought was creeping into your space, even if you wanted to judge or criticize somebody or say something nasty, take a breath. Think of the most positive thing that you want, the feeling you want to manifest, the energy you want more of, and focus so consistently on that emotion, on that energy, that it becomes all that exists in your space. And it's just as easy as putting one thought at a time to work for you, to allow your breath to be a reminder of the power of what you invite in, and then to make certain that everything you're putting out there is so valuable that it enriches the lives of the people you touch. Be a happiness ambassador. Use happiness as a deterrent against negativity. Show up in such a happy, positive way that people can't help but feel inspired and empowered because you are there. So we're showing up better in the world. We're creating more of the energy we want. We are raising the average up. Yes, we're raising the average up. We're creating an energy that's better because we've made the effort to elevate it, to improve it, to create something better, brand new, something new and improved, whatever you need to call it. Just give yourself that space to say, I'm going to use happiness as my mantra, love as a mantra, joy as a mantra. Anything that you actually want to feel, that feeling of success, that feeling of confidence, that feeling of security, fulfillment, contentment, bliss, joy, pleasure, all of the things that you deserve, start tapping into it as a regular feeling, as a consistent feeling. And that feeling will give you access to everything. So we're putting our thoughts to work for us, allowing our thoughts to regulate our emotions and create something that's so uniquely positive, joyful, powerful, that it's elevating the energy in the space around us. We have the power to do it. We have the access to it. All we need is this little quiet, slow space in the kingdom of our mind. Take a little breath, slow things down, and then tap into the emotion that you want to create always. And understand that if you start to focus on that emotion often enough, that becomes the norm. That's how we raise the average up, because we create something that is so in line with who we want to be, what we want to feel, what we want to offer to the world, how we want to leave the world once we're gone. What impact are we going to have? What legacy are we going to have? And nobody's ever really going to remember the physical stuff. Everybody remembers the way they feel. And the feeling and emotion is defining everything. So our emotions are evidence that we exist. So create something in this breath, with this thought, in this moment, that helps to raise the average up. Spoken Word Yoga Podcast. Check it out on any platform. I'm here trying to take over the airwaves. Our work, my work, our work, because we're on a team, is to shift the energy on social media, shift the energy in the world, put so much positive stuff out there that there's no more room for negative. This is our work collectively. So whether or not you have a microphone in front of you or a camera in your hand, the work is in every interaction, every person you meet, to raise the average up, to leave somebody feeling better because you interacted with them. This is our work in starting to shift the consciousness, change the world, and who better to do it than you? And what better time to start than right now? See you next time. Hear you next time. In the space next time. Spoken Word Yoga. Blessings, blessings, and blessings. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. See you on the next show. Tune in. Spoken Word Yoga Podcast. Worldwide. Dun, dun, dun. Blessings and blessings. Next time. Stand in your strength and make the most of your moments. With every thought, create an energy so valuable that it's worth sharing with the world. Follow Spoken Word Yoga on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter for daily positive affirmations. And prepare to change the world, one action at a time. Blessings, blessings, and blessings. Spoken Word Yoga. Namaste.